In a dusty train station tucked behind an old music school, a blind boy sat quietly with his fingers tracing the edge of a cracked wooden piano. No one knew who left it there. People walked past him every day, assuming he was just feeling the keys out of curiosity. But his hands seemed to dance over the surface, not pressing the keys, just memorizing their position. He never played, only listened. Across the terminal, a world-renowned pianist dressed in sleek black and gold was waiting for a delayed train. He sipped bitter coffee, scrolling through his phone, when the sound of silence caught his ear. It wasn't noise that caught him. It was the absence of it, the hush around the blind boy. Something about the child's stillness made him look twice. Curious, the pianist stood, walked over, and said with half a smirk, "Why don't you play? Just for fun." The boy tilted his head. "Because when I do, people stare." That intrigued the pianist even more. With a teasing tone, he said, "Don't worry, I'm blind to judgment. Let's hear what you've got." And the boy, hesitant but intrigued, placed his fingers gently on the keys. The first chord was hesitant like a whisper. Then a second came, fuller, bolder, like sunrise through mist. In less than 5 seconds, everyone in the station turned. Conversation stopped. Even the sound of coffee machines went unnoticed. The blind boy's fingers glided over the piano with emotion that felt impossible for someone his age or experience. The famous pianist's smile faded. He wasn't expecting that, not from a boy who had never taken a lesson, never seen the layout of the keys, and certainly never played in front of anyone. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy simply replied, "My mama calls me Eli." There was a stillness, almost reverence, in the way the name floated. People started to record. Few threw coins into a hat that wasn't there. One woman began to cry. The famous pianist stood, frozen, his ego quietly shrinking in the presence of something raw, unpolished, yet breathtaking. Eli had always loved sound. As a baby he cried until music played. When he lost his sight after a childhood fever, his world didn't dim, it just shifted. He listened harder, noticed footsteps, wind, voices, and from a neighbor's broken radio, he discovered piano, music, Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, ragtime jazz. He would press his palms against speakers just to feel the vibrations. He'd sneak into the back of local concerts and memorize every melody, note by note. His mother worked 2 jobs, and when she wasn't home, he'd sit at the old church piano. No lessons, no sheet music, just the memory of sound. But the church closed. The piano was removed. And since then, Eli hadn't touched another until now. Something about the station piano felt familiar, like it had been waiting for him too. After Eli stopped playing, the crowd clapped like thunder in a storm. But the pianist didn't clap, reached into his coat and handed Eli a business card. "Come see me," he said. Tomorrow, Eli felt the edges of the card with his fingers. "Why?" he asked. "Because I've played all over the world," the man said. "I've never heard someone like you." The boy nodded, confused, unsure. His mama didn't like strangers. They'd been burned before by promises, by pity. He slipped the card into his pocket. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. But something inside him stirred. That night, he told his mother. She was suspicious, guarded, but when she heard his name, she paused. Even she had his records, back from her youth. She wasn't impressed by fame, but she knew what it meant when legends made offers. Eli's mother, Marla, had known hard roads and colder winters. She had raised her son alone, in a world not built for softness or blindness. Her faith wasn't in men, institutions, or miracles. It was in rhythm, patience, and God. She'd seen too many people make promises with smooth talk and sharp teeth. She met the pianist the next day. He was charming, too charming, smiled wide, spoke softly, and wore cologne that screamed money. "I want to mentor your son," he said. "He's gifted." She replied, "He's mine first." The tension cracked, and for a moment the pianist respected her more for it. Eventually, she agreed, but with conditions. No contracts, no cameras, no interviews, just music. If Eli wanted to continue, he could. If not, they'd leave without a goodbye. The pianist nodded. For now, that was enough. Eli's first time entering the pianist estate felt like stepping into a world made entirely of sound. The hallway echoed perfectly. The piano room smelled of old wood and polish. Massive windows let in sunlight that Eli couldn't see but felt warm against his skin. He was led gently to the grand piano concert Steinway owned. Told to play anything, he hesitated. His fingers hovered. This piano didn't hum like the old station one. It roared with power. Still Eli began. At first a lullaby, then something else, something original. The pianist stood quietly behind him, stunned by the boy's ability to invent melody, as if translating thoughts directly into keys. Afterwards, the man clapped once. "From now on, this is your piano," he said. Eli turned his head. "I thought it was yours." The pianist smiled faintly. "Not anymore." For the first time in decades, the famous pianist felt small, and it thrilled him. Their sessions weren't traditional. There were no books, no drills. The pianist would play a phrase. Then Eli would echo it, embellish it, sometimes even improve it. They spoke in harmonies. And when the boy got frustrated because he always demanded more from himself, the pianist didn't comfort him. He challenged him. Eli's natural gift was undeniable, but his technique needed work. Sometimes his fingers slipped. Other times he played too fast, eager to say too much at once. The pianist taught him restraint, how silence between notes could speak just as loudly. But the most important lesson wasn't musical. It came when the pianist said, "Do not play for applause, play for truth, because truth always finds its audience." Eli never forgot that. One day, exploring the mansion, Eli stumbled into a locked room. He wasn't supposed to go there, but curiosity pulled him like a magnet. The door was slightly ajar, and with his cane, he nudged it open. The smell inside was different: lavender, dust, and something older. There was a small, upright piano, worn and silent. A photo hung on the wall, a little girl with curls and bright eyes sitting on the pianist's lap. Eli touched it gently. That night, he asked the pianist, "Did you have a daughter?" The man paused too long. "I did," he said quietly. "She played beautifully." Eli understood without asking more. That piano hadn't been touched since her death. The famous pianist's obsession with music wasn't just passion, it was grief too. Word got out. It always does. A reporter overheard a musician talking about a blind boy who plays like the wind. Soon there were knocks on the pianist's gate. Journalists, vloggers, influencers. They wanted to see the miracle. But the pianist refused every request. Still, videos from the station leaked online. Eli's first performance had been recorded. It went viral. People around the world heard his melody and sent messages, letters, even gifts. Eli didn't know what viral meant. He only asked, "Why do strangers care about me now when they didn't before?" The pianist answered, "Because truth doesn't stay hidden, even when the world tries to ignore it." But he also warned, don't chase their attention. If you do, you'll forget who you were before they clapped. Not everyone celebrated Eli. The pianist had students before many. In fact, some had trained for decades, hungry for the kind of attention Eli was now getting by instinct. One in particular, a sharp-tongued prodigy named Miles, was furious. He believed Eli was a gimmick, a charity case with flair but no depth. He confronted the pianist. "You're wasting time. That boy's not a genius, he's lucky." The pianist replied coldly, "He has something you don't." "What?" "Blindness," Miles snapped. "No," the pianist said. "Soul." The conversation stung. Miles left the estate that night, but his resentment didn't. And in the shadows, he began plotting how to expose Eli as a fraud. Eli didn't know any of this. He only knew music. So when the pianist told him he'd arranged a small private performance for a few guests, Eli was nervous but excited. He rehearsed day and night, not for praise, but to prove to himself he was ready. On the night of the event, candles flickered, chairs were filled, and a hush fell over the room as Eli walked in with his mother beside him. He sat at the piano, exhaled deeply, and began. What followed wasn't just music, it was memory, longing, prayer. One of the guests sobbed openly. Another closed her eyes and whispered, "He doesn't play the notes, he plays the truth." Meanwhile, in the corner, someone filmed without permission. The next day, Eli's video appeared online with an ugly title, "Blind Boy Fakes Piano Performance. You Decide." The footage had been edited to cast doubt, to make it seem like someone else was playing while Eli just mimed the keys. The comment section exploded. Praise turned to mockery. Eli's mother was furious. The pianist was silent. Eli, he was confused. Why are they lying, he asked. No one had an answer that made sense. Fame had found him, but so had cruelty. The pianist took Eli's hand and said, "Do you believe in what you played?" "Yes," Eli replied. "Then let the liars scream." Music is louder. For a full week, Eli didn't touch the piano. The joy had vanished. Every time he raised his fingers to the keys, he heard the ridicule in his head. Fake, just for pity, trained monkey. He didn't cry, but his silence was louder than any outburst. The pianist didn't pressure him. He simply played every day alone, letting melodies drift through the halls like gentle invitations. Sometimes Eli would sit near him just listening. Then one afternoon, the pianist played the lullaby Eli first performed at the station. Without thinking, Eli joined in. One hand, then the other. Together, they completed the song. When it ended, Eli whispered, "Let them watch. I'll show them the truth." The pianist made a call. He knew a man who ran an underground performance space, one without cameras, contracts, or critics. A place where musicians played stripped of ego. He arranged for Eli to appear unannounced. When Eli arrived, the audience barely noticed the blind boy stepping onto the stage. No one knew his name. No one expected anything. That's exactly what he wanted. He sat, exhaled, and began to play. No one spoke. The music built slowly, fragile, aching, then soaring. When it ended, the silence stretched. Then someone stood, clapped once. Another joined. Soon, the room erupted. Eli smiled for the first time in weeks. Not because they clapped, but because he had played fearlessly. Back at the mansion, a letter waited for Eli. It had no return address. Inside was a simple message. "You remind me of someone I loved. Thank you for giving her song back." Enclosed was a photo of the pianist's daughter, younger, holding a music sheet titled "Morning Rain." Eli ran his fingers over the notes. "I want to play this," he said. The pianist froze. "I wrote that for her. It's never been performed." Eli said quietly, "Then let it be." For weeks they rehearsed. Not for an audience, not for fame, but for memory. To let a lost melody live again through new fingers. Miles, the jealous student, returned, not to apologize but to challenge. He arrived with a new manager, a press crew, and a scathing review of Eli's media stunt. He called a public showdown. 2 pianists, 1 truth. Who really deserved the spotlight? The pianist wanted no part of it. But Eli accepted. Not out of pride, but because he knew others like him were watching. If he backed down, they would think they had to hide too. On the day of the showdown, the hall was packed. Cameras flashed. Miles performed flawlessly technical, cold, impressive. Then Eli stepped up. Eli didn't sit immediately. He walked across the stage, touched the piano's edge, and whispered to it like an old friend. Then he played Morning Rain. The hall fell silent. The melody danced like mist, then wept like loss, then bloomed like sunlight.
Oh, yes.
It was more than a song, it was a resurrection. When he finished, there was no applause at first, just stunned silence. Then the pianist stood. Others followed. Even the camera crew dropped their equipment to clap. Miles stared at the floor. His fingers, once so sure, now trembled. He turned and walked away. Backstage, Miles waited. When Eli emerged, he didn't insult him. He bowed. "I was wrong," he said. "You weren't just gifted. You're necessary." Eli extended his hand. "Play with me sometime," he said. No bitterness, just music. They played that night, improvised. No plan, just instinct. It was chaos, beauty, surprise. The crowd didn't know what they were witnessing, only that they'd never forget it. The pianist watched from the shadows, tears in his eyes. Not from pride, but from release. For the first time since his daughter died, he felt peace. Eli was offered contracts, big labels, global tours, but he turned them all down. Instead, he recorded one album, just one, titled Morning Rain. All proceeds went to buying pianos for children who couldn't afford lessons. The songs weren't flashy. They were honest. Some had wrong notes. Some were too quiet. But each told a story. It became a quiet success, not chart-topping, but soul-tapping. People listened in hospitals, in lonely kitchens, on rooftops. They said it made them feel seen, but no journey is without shadow. Eli began having nightmares, not of music, but of silence. He feared losing his gift, forgetting the sound of the piano. He'd wake up sweating, hands trembling. The pianist noticed. "You're not losing your gift," he said. "You're becoming afraid of what comes after it." Eli nodded. "What if one day the music stops?" The pianist smiled gently. "Then you listen, and when it returns, you play." One morning, the pianist didn't rise from bed. Doctors came. Words like degenerative and terminal floated through the halls. Eli listened at the door, heartbreaking. The man who gave him music was fading, slowly but surely. Eli refused to let that be the end. He brought the piano into the bedroom. It's played for him every day. One day, the pianist whispered, "Play the piece I never finished." "Which one?" Eli asked. "The one I never had the courage to start." They created a new composition together. The pianist hummed phrases. Eli completed them. It was messy, strange, perfect. When it was done, the pianist said, "Promise me something." "Anything," Eli said. "Keep playing, even when no one listens." The next morning, he was gone. Eli sat at the piano, tears falling, and played that song no name, no fame, just a farewell wrapped in notes. For days, Eli didn't perform. He didn't speak. The mansion felt hollow. His mother tried to console him, but grief has no shortcut. Then, one night, he dreamed of the station, of the broken piano, of the first time he played. He woke up and knew what he had to do. He walked to the station, sat down, and played. One by one, strangers gathered. Some recognized him. Most didn't. Didn't matter. Eli played as he always had. "For truth," a child cried. A worker paused. A violinist joined in. Then a cellist. It wasn't planned, but it was perfect. By the end, the crowd stood in silence and clapped. Not for fame, but for healing. Eli began teaching not in schools, but in parks, shelters, under bridges. Placed pianos in forgotten places. He told kids, "Don't wait for permission to sing." Some laughed, some cried. One girl said, "But I'm not good enough." Eli smiled, "Neither was I, until someone let me try." And so the gift kept moving. Years later, Eli returned to the mansion. Dust covered the floors. But the upright piano in the ghost room remained. He sat before it, played the first lullaby, then paused. In the drawer, he found a faded note. His name and a sentence. "You were always the song I was waiting to hear." Eli never became a superstar. But his music reached places superstardom never could. The heart. He never saw the faces in the audience, but he felt them. Years later, another boy sat at a piano, blind, shy, and someone told him, "Play just for fun." He did. The melody, familiar. It was morning rain. The music hadn't stopped. It had only begun again.